Hey there, fellow engineers. Rodamon here. Thank you for tuning in to Stationeers Brutal Vulcan, episode 43, hooking up the advanced furnace intakes. So as you can see above my head, we are going to continue working on the advanced furnace, setting it up and getting it to start making super alloys. So in the game, you have like regular ores, you have alloys, which would be like steel, those things, and then you have these are just the alloys: electrum, invar, constant, steel, solder, and then you have super alloys, and the super alloys are these. So I'll show you a chart. This is how we're going to make the super alloys. I decided that it's going to be easiest to make super alloys with gas. So we're going to be adding fuel and pressurant being CO2 at roughly room temperature, to create these alloys: stellite, inconel, astraloy, hastalloy, and waspalloy. And this is sort of the recipe guide of like what to add in terms of fuel and pressure. So that's what we're going to be working on. But before I do that, I just wanted to do some of the atmospheric maintenance. It's also worth noting, if you're wondering oops, that's the wrong one. If you're wondering where all this is headed, I would very much like to eventually get to a point where we can start doing things like rocketry, which I've actually never done on stream. And the reason why I've been waiting is for rocketry and things like rocketry, you need a fairly automated base that is able to supply, let me turn that down, able to supply the requisite materials and gases and the like. And I don't really have an automated base well enough that, because I have to pay attention to it regularly enough, that it's a bit of a problem. So before we continue the automated furnace, there's one little change I wanted to make, which is I'm going to change the max pressure of our gas tank for the Stirling engines from 50,000 to 40,000. The reason being, at 50 MPa, pipes start to creak and groan, which is usually, when you hear those noises, you go in to investigate to make sure nothing's gonna explode. And I don't want to constantly have creaking and groaning in my base, because it's going to make, I would eventually start to learn to ignore it if that was the norm, and then things could blow up. So, tiny little change, but that's all we really needed to change. So, let's go into... Actually, in our advanced furnace room... Well, let's check it again. Yeah, false alarm fatigue, exactly. If you're in a hospital room and everything's beeping, nothing's beeping. Because if you're so used to everything beeping, you're not going to listen to beeps anymore. And that's a really dumb system, if you ask me. But I digress. So what I want to do is I want to set up this advanced furnace in the center of the room, and then start hooking up all the plumbing that it's going to require. I can also explain more or less how the advanced furnace works. It includes its own plumbing, unlike a regular furnace. So the way it works here is you plug it in, and then you hook up input and output tanks to it, and then these act as volume pumps. And it pumps in gas from the inputs when you have the input up higher than 0, where then you could ignite it if it's fuel or whatever, and then you can dump the gas when you're done. And then, import, export. It's actually very straightforward. But it's the furnace that can do the super alloys and handle higher temperatures and pressures and all that jazz. So, that is what we are going to be setting up. Alright. So let's start. The first thing we need to do is bring carbon dioxide, which is the pressurant, and fuel, which is fuel, as an available into that room. What I'm planning on doing is having pressure regulators. Actually, I'm just going to rip that pressure regulator out of the wall. But basically, pressure regulators like that one control the pressure of the tanks that we feed into it. So speaking of which, actually, let me just pull that pressure regulator, because if we're going to be loading fuel into canisters in here, and let me back up a little bit. There's multiple ways to do an advanced furnace. This is just one such way. It's the way I want to do it. The way I want to do it is canister fed. I want to do canister fed because if it's pipe fed, you can get things wrong and things can go kablooey real fast. Much the way that I have the water system in the farm, I have to physically carry a canister of water and slot it into my hydroponic farm. And although that is an additional level of manual labor, there is some foolproofing there where I can check, is this water safe for the farm? There's like a sanity check there. And yeah, you could code one in. I know. But it helps to keep the plants alive, because if the water was too hot, it could kill all 105 plants that are in there. And that would be really bad. It would be a real pain. And it's so much more of a pain to lose 105 plants and then start with very few seeds and take forever to replant them all than it is for me to load up a canister once every like 20 hours or whatever. So, for the advanced furnace, I'm going to do the same thing, where I'll have pressure regulators hooked up to gas canister ports, and have those gas canister ports have a bunch of canisters that I then physically load that gas into the furnace to start the process. And if I open up that chart again, you can see that like the easiest one would be stellite. It's just a little bit of fuel. But some of the things, like waspaloy, requires an immense amount of pressure and fuel. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to probably hook up like 6 import ports or something like that. And this will make a lot more sense as I build it. So, yeah. You don't need to worry about like understanding the full concept. It will be explained to you once it's built. The other things we're going to want for this is smart canisters. So the smart gas canisters can handle higher temperatures and pressures than the regular ones. There's a very good argument to be made that I should be using smart canisters for my own tanks instead of these regular ones. The reason why, and let me get rid of this. The reason why I'm still using the regular ones is they're more like foolproofed I suppose in a way. Actually, that's the wrong color paint. And just for this one, I'm going to be eventually making a whole bunch of these smart canisters for this system, but I just wanted to paint this one first prototype. See to keep, thank you for the cheer, by the way. And Destroyer, thank you for the resub. And this is my, like, paint room, because it vacuums everything out. The reason I'm doing this right now is if I'm uninstalling this gas line here, which, yeah, I am, I don't want the fuel to go to waste or disappear. So I've pressurized this with fuel. This should be fuel. Yeah, it's close enough to 3367 that it's fuel. How do I want to deal with the gases extruded by the furnace? Just wait. I'm building it. If you feel the need to ask what step 10 is when you're on step 1, patience, Padawan, is what I'm going to say. And I'm going to paint these two. Essentially, if things are orange, it's like mixed gas, in this case fuel. And then the pressure and stuff will be yellow, which is the default color, which makes it easy. Okay. Let's print up a whole bunch of insulated pipes, because I'm assuredly going to need them. Because I don't have any. while I'm sitting here, wouldn't be a terrible idea for me to... Actually, I probably shouldn't have done that. But for me to make another batch of fuel. And let's pull up the remnants of the other fuel canister loading system. Because we don't need... we don't really need the remnants of that sticking around. And then likewise, what's going on here? This is the... Oh, yeah, this is the nitrogen filtration. And that's the waste gas line? Okay, so these two are separate. This is fuel line. They just happen to be the same color. This is fuel line. This is waste gas. Got it. I'm just a little confused. Did you run out of material? No, you just got jammed up. Because I don't use stackers. So what we're doing here is we want fuel generated by this fuel gas mixer to be piped into the furnace room, and then carbon dioxide from this line to be piped into the furnace room so that we can pressure regulate and canister mix it as a way to generate our furnace gases. And I'm going to have a stack of yellow and a stack of orange because those are the two lines that we're going to be using. Base feels homey? Yeah, it's definitely not sterile. I've seen a lot of people's bases, and they like build very perfect looking bases, and this one has been improvised hardcore. And like, very much on purpose. Is CO2 used by more than plants? For the most part, it's for plants, but you can use it for pressurant, you can use it for coolant loops, you can use it... I mean, it's a gas, so you can use it for a whole bunch of things. Alright, we only have 700 moles in there, so I'm going to leave that running. Filter on there is 30, filter on the oxygen is 10. If filters on the oxygen is 10, might as well get another oxygen filter while we're staring at this thing. I could start to consider making medium filters, maybe? Out of silver and Constantine. And then once we have stellite, we could even consider the heavy filters. But this allows us to have to swap them out a lot less frequently. And it's only 1 gram of Constantine, and I already had a giant stack of silver, so like, why not? So, I'll swap that in once the alarm goes off. I'll just leave it here for now. Alright. The other thing is if I wanted to make water, so we were making fuel in this line. This line is already pretty pressurized. So what I'm going to do is this fuel line, I'm going to leave the pressure in it because I want to... I'll be able to tell it's fuel from outside and be able to trace it back. Because what I want to do is I want to feed that fuel in here. So let's set up some of the plumbing for this furnace design. So what I want is like the fuel to come down in here. Pressure regulate. And then we'll have canister loaders. Oops, that was correct, and I rotated. So tank fills. And for the sake of symmetry and aesthetics, so we're going to have 4 tank fills for fuel and 4 tank fills Probably more than 4 tank fills for the pressurant, actually. But we'll see. And then we will put the gas in there. So now there's actually fuel in the system already, pressurized. And if I wanted to get rid of it, I could install this as a back pressure regulator and shove the fuel back up if I wanted to. But I don't. It's fine to have it preloaded with a little bit of fuel. So there we go. And you can kind of see how this is going to work. We're going to have 4 canisters of fuel ready to be piped into the input nozzle of the advanced furnace. All right, I'm almost certainly going to need more pipes than I currently have. And then in order to hook up the fuel, we're connecting that I just made to this, because that's our fuel line. Power's at 100. Storm Melody's fine. There was one other thing that I wanted to check, which is that the Stirling generator's hot gas tank gets nice and full during the days. Because we haven't checked the input. There are better vents to potentially use for that, if it's not pulling off enough volume. But that's something to check on later. I could check actually the volume right now, but it's been nighttime a minute, so I don't know if it's going to be an accurate read. But I'll check anyway. So these are producing 12 kilowatts. And this tank has 5 MPa at almost 950, well, almost 1,000 Celsius. So, seems okay, and we'll see during the day if that goes up or not. So that's where the fuel needs to be. And this is the current fuel line. Easy enough to connect the two. Let's hook up a wrench. Is this too long? Yeah. 10's too much. 5 and a 3. And then once we have the fuel line hooked up, we can similarly do the CO2. 5, yep, that works. Okay. Fuel line for the furnace is done. I did not create a bump out, or whatever you want to call it, for the CO2 line, so I gotta go back inside for that. Also, my vitals are rather low, so I might want to, like, hydrate and stuff. With the Stirling setup, would it be useful to add a powered Stirling generator between the combustor and the condenser? So the reason I didn't do this is I don't generate steam frequently enough that I thought it would be worth it. At the end of the day, what I have set up works as it is now, and it's generating all the power that I want. So the project fulfilled 100% of what I wanted it to do. I can't. Adding any more to it isn't any benefit because it's already doing exactly what I wanted it to do. Does that make sense? So yes, you could put it between you could take the H2 combustor's output gas and create Stirling power from it. But that's only useful when you're running water filtration, which I have turned on maybe like 5% of the time. The problem is ultimately that until I streamline my water production process, I would not be using my combustor frequently enough for it to even help with the Stirling generation. I mean, if you remember the Stirling generator, the problem they were having was volume. The volume of hot gas. The amount of hot gas that comes off of an H2 combustor that I run 5% of the time at low water yields is just not it's a drop in the bucket. So it's not to say that it wouldn't help, but I'm not going to go out of my way to make a already built system more complex for a drop in the bucket of extra gas. Just very little bang for your buck. That would be my opinion. Alright, so hydration is done. Before I do... Oh, there's the oxygen filter warning. And we have a solar storm? We must. Gross. So it's like super extra hot out. Well, the problem with that is like this project probably, I don't really want to be outside during a solar storm. So maybe what I'll do is, yeah, okay, it's definitely a solar storm. You can see all the like doors and panels are like freaking crazy. I will print up more of the internal plumbing for this so that I can stay inside, because going outside in the middle of the solar storm is going to cook me good. I don't believe I have a whole lot of nitrogen left. No, really not at all. So we're also going to need to cycle some nitrogen. What's the nitrogen in the room anyway? Oh, it's 24%. Yeah, no, never mind. I think I'm just going to leave the plants chilling here, because when I need bread, I'll harvest and process. I don't need bread right now, so, like, whatever. Water looks okay. Farm's fine. You bet I don't run out of power now? It's true. Although I can only really draw just shy of 10 kilowatts during a solar storm because of transformers and the like. I can't really oh yeah, wow. That is... How hot it... Hold on, I gotta check. Speaking of hot gas for the Sterlings, yeah, it's gonna be cooked. It is, 14, 20, 30 outside. Let's look at my waste tank. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah, we'll be fine. That thing is filling up fast. So there are better vents, higher flow vents that we could have set up with this, but there's going to be lots of hot gas for the Stirling engines going forward, so no issue at all. Okay, my waste tank is about 2/3 full for being outside for 5 seconds. Maybe not 5 seconds, but still, point taken. Let's get inside. How hot is the waste tank's gas, actually? No, I shouldn't do that, because I suffocate. Temperature 366. Okay, so it's 66 degrees warmer than normal as a waste tank. So it was 87 degrees Celsius waste gas because of how stupidly hot it was. Again, if you're trying to figure out why, in order to air condition you, it cycles your cold oxygen through your suit to cool you down, assuming that you have cold oxygen. If you don't, your waste tank will just fill up constantly. But it uses the oxygen in your oxygen tank to cool you down, and then it pulls that excess heat into your waste tank. So your waste tank is like a radiator dump tank, if you want to think of it that way. Alright, so we want a bunch of pipe utilities. I'll do 10 or 9 more. And 3 of these are going to be painted orange for the 4 total fuel cans. And then the others are going to stay yellow. Would it make sense to have the smart tanks for the waste? Yeah, but then I'd have to do the oxygen as well. So it makes sense. But like, as with everything, it's got to be voted on. So, I'll do it if it's voted on. Yeah, and game limits waste tank, because your suits can only accommodate so much. Anyway, that's a good point. But for your oxygen tank, it makes more sense. If you really want to do... If you really wanted me to not have to deal with that constantly, the answer would be a more simple one, get a better suit. Which, once the advanced furnace is done, is achievable. Okay, there's the last one. Okay. So this tank fill can already start working, I think. I don't really need to wait for the rest of the system because this runs, basically all of these things run independently. So as soon as this is plugged in, the pressure regulator that is, we can start to pressure regulate our first batch. And our first batch is going to be stellite, because stellite is the easiest. So stellite is one fuel can of 3600 kPa, or 3.6 MPa, with some silver, cobalt, and silicon. Which makes sense, given that it is the easiest, it makes sense for it to be the first batch. Alright, on the other side, it's going to be basically the same setup. Maybe what I'll do is bring the pressurant in here. And then we want the pressure regulator there. And then the tank fills something like this. And the reason for this is some of the things you make require a lot of pressurant. And before I start laying out the plumbing, let's get the pressure regulator, because this tank fill is probably too close. Also, worth noting, you get a lot shorter warnings for solar storms than you do wind or ash storms. There's not a lot of heads up. Oh, do I have a pressure regulator, though? Volume pump. Pipe radiators. No, I don't. Alright, there's the pressure regulator. Did I need anything else for that? I don't think so. As long as I have cables, so we're good to go. Sorry for just, you know, roping you into so many new games. Again, I take responsibility. Okay, so the pressure regulator's there. And this is, of course, for the CO2 line. So maybe what we'll do is, just for continuity or whatever, I'll just have all of the tank fills on the back wall here. So we have the fuel, we have the pressurant or CO2. Another reason to keep this room vacuum is, like, there's not going to be external temperatures and pressures exerted on these canisters, which is, like, kind of useful, because if this room wasn't vacuum and it, like, got super hot, it could pressurize the canisters beyond a safe tolerance. And then you end up having a bunch of ruptured fuel cans in a hot environment. Yeah, that's a game over situation right there. Alright, so now we've got our CO2 tanks and our fuel tanks. Let's take a minute just to label these things. The actual tanks don't really matter, but the regulators. Fuel, pressure regulator, and pressurant. Pressure regulator. So the other thing we're going to want is these. We will then have a back wall of intake canister fills. The idea is we'll take a can of fuel and load it into another can on the back, which feeds into the input of the furnace. So there's a physical step where I have to take the fuel can and load it in, it's not automatic, and I don't want it automatic because I want it measured and, like, controlled. So we need a back wall of fuel cans. And the other thing is, yeah, so a back wall of canisters, which are just going to be fed into this thing. And I'll probably have them white colored, because that's the color of the furnace. Not that it represents oxygen or anything like that. We could even spray paint the furnace gray, but whatever. Gray is, I don't care what color it is. So let's go canister. Or rather, utils. And, maybe 8? Purple? Okay. I'll print up some purple. Is there a heat transfer risk? No, there is not. Is it still? It's funny. It's still a solar storm out, even though it's nighttime. I mean, I know obviously that's like an aurora borealis, more or less, but still, I find it funny that it's like, it's still stormy. All right. Another thing I probably need to do is to do some mining and smelting, because I'm gonna be out of material soon. I've very low on iron, gold, copper. So the standards. Standard material needs to get amassed. But before I do that, I should have enough for the CO2 line. So get the CO2 line hooked up. All right. Make some more insulator pipes for that. Oh, right. Yeah, I was going to print up some color. So in order to find the CO2 line, this is the CO2, the start of the CO2 line. I'm just going to shove it up through the ceiling so that I can hook up everything to it. Make it visible from outside. Always more pipes, always more cables. Yep. This is the pipe and cable simulator. Alright, that looks good. My hydration food looks fine. Now the way the fuel line hooked up, I'm going to start making water. So now we're making water. Alright, back out we go. So I am hooking up the CO2 or pressurant line in this step. Now, for the... I could have skipped this in order to make Stellite, Inconel, Astrolite, because only Histoloy and Waspaloy needs pressurant, but I might as well just finish the whole system. So this is the CO2, and this is where it needs to go, and I think... I don't have enough pipes for this, I bet. So, more pipes needed. But you can see the run once it's done. Alright, the other thing I wanted to check on, because it's nighttime, but only recently nighttime, is 33 MPa at 1268 Celsius. Yeah, okay, it's fine. I could probably even have it go higher than 40, but And that's making 16 kilowatts, which is more than my solar grid could even manage. So, like, no problem. No problem. I need maybe like 10 more pipes. Probably not even. Yep, and that power is definitely going up. And the solar storm is over. That's good. Okay, we have a kilomole of CO2. Just gonna keep rocking that until the gas filter fails. That's probably enough. Alright, let's finish the plumbing. And then we'll need to make a whole bunch of gas canisters and, you know, spray paint them and all that jazz. All part of the process. Does a 10 fit here? Ooh, it does. A 10 and a 3? Ah, beautiful. Used up all my pipes. So, this is obviously the CO2 line. As you can see, CO2's in it. And fuel's in this. So, yeah, it's all plumbed up. Perfect. I probably do not have enough material to make the canisters that I want, but let's at least hook up the spray paint, rather, the purple, and then we'll continue from there. So I'm spray painting the intakes for the canisters purple, and then maybe I'll spray paint the actual furnace purple too. For me to do that, I'm probably going to want to move this thing over to hoover up the gas. Maybe like an active vent that just like dumps the gas would be easy. It would certainly be easier. I'm just gonna spray paint the room and then deal with the gas that we add in a minute. Because if we do have a fuel leak in here, we're gonna want like an active vent to be able to flush the fuel leak out. So it makes sense to have some ability to deal with that. Do I settle for 7? Or do I add an 8th? I'll settle for 7. Well, it's a very interesting looking room. And as you can see, there's a tiny bit of pollutant in the room as a result. But, yeah, nothing I can't vacuum out. So then, we have to hook up the input to all of these cans. And the way this works is, as I said, the advanced furnace acts as a volume pump, so you don't actually need to do any plumbing, just pipes. All that we really need to do now is to plug in the pressure regulators. And also, make sure that they're set to 0, because I don't want to start pressurizing anything right now. "86 days without dying." I haven't been 86'd yet. Scandia, thank you for the resub. And Happy New Year to you too. Always a pleasure to have you here. right, so the regulators are now done. And you know what we could do? Let's just start pressurizing. I'm going to move this can here. I'm going to start pressurizing that can to 36. So what ends up happening is all of the plumbing in the network, and you can actually see the smart canister has like a visual indicator of like how full it is, but all the plumbing is going to pressurize to 3,600. Now there might be a reason to have some sort of volume pump to flush, to put things back in up ahead if you want to lower the pressure. I haven't installed that yet because in this current system, the only way to lower the pressure is to pull the canisters out, but there's no way to dump the gas back up. And we could do a volume pump for that. But the tank fills themselves, if they're empty, they don't hold any volume. So all of the gas is either going to be in this pipe or in this canister. And I'm going to turn it off for now, but as you can see, it's obviously working. And this is fuel. Perfect fuel. All right, so let's get a bunch of insulated pipes to feed into the tank fills. But maybe before I do that, I'll get some metals and put them through the arc furnace. Some basic metals. I'm just gluing it to the ceiling for storage space, because I might as well. So we can hook up volume pumps to be able to empty out the canisters. I think that's probably a smart thing to, like a smart system to eventually implement. So that way, if you look at the thing, if we pressurized it, let's say to make Inconel, and then all of a sudden we want to make Stellite, the pressure is lower, but the gas pulled out of the canisters might not actually lower the pressure of the pressurized section below 3,600, so the volume pump would, like, aid for that. It's a very isolated chance that we would need it, but, like, it's better to have it not need it than need it not have it, as I frequently say. Thank you for tuning in to Stationeer's Brutal Vulcan, which originally streamed live on Twitch. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rodamont.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you'd like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rodamont.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patrons, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow Vulcanites.